you. I wanted to let folks know that we do record the programming portion of our meetings so that all the community members and our members who couldn't make it today can still learn the information that we're sharing during our programming time. So today we have three different programming pieces, but they all have to do with kind of the overall theme of democracy. So we're going to start with Michigan Democratic Party. Emily Boyer is going to talk about our redistricting process and some action that we as the Ann Arbor Democratic Club could take here locally. Emily, are you ready to start for us?
Yes, I would love to. Would it be okay if I shared my screen?
Sure. I think that if you can't do it automatically, you might need permission from our meeting host.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Boyer. I use she, her pronouns. I work for the Michigan Democratic Party on redistricting. I'm here to provide a bit of an update on where the process is at right now and what's ahead. And also I have some ideas of how you can get involved today. And then also some opportunities to give public comment to the commission this week. And we will talk about those as well. So redistricting happens once every 10 years, right? So they're in the middle of this process. This is the first time we've had an independent citizens redistricting commission working on this. This is very exciting. They're going to be eventually arriving at three total maps, one for the State House, one for the State Senate, and then a congressional map as well. The number of seats at the State House and State Senate level are staying the same. And so a lot of what we're seeing right now is looking at so many different ways that you can draw the maps and how you can move the lines to be more fair and undoing a lot of what we've had before with Republican gerrymandering, when the Republican Party would go behind closed doors, come up with a map that they thought suited it, that made sense for themselves and their friends. And this is the first time that we have independent citizens working on maps. So it's very exciting. And with our input, hopefully they will be able to get to a great conclusion. As many of us know, this is the conclusion of what Voters Not Politicians worked so hard to accomplish in 2018 with Proposal 2, and that getting passed by Michigan voters. So for those of you who helped circulate petitions on there and voted for it, we do appreciate that we're in a place right now to have the opportunity to finally get some new fair maps. This is the criteria that the commission is considering, just as a refresher, as we're about to talk about this. A lot of what they've been focused on so far in their mapping was creating equal population districts and getting those districts within the population deviation that was allowed. They're also, I think, as some people have mentioned today, having a very interested interpretation of what VRA is in protecting these voting rights districts. And some of their guidance has been to unpack areas, which is good. And in places that we saw minority voices in the 60 and 70%, that is definitely packing. And we want them to be able to elect their candidate of choice, but not be packed into a district. But the commission is doing some interesting things now where they've sort of swung down into the upper 30s or lower 40% for African-American voters in districts. And the question right now is, at that level, can they actually elect their candidate of choice? So that is a debate that's happening right now with the commission. We have to have geographically contiguous districts, so no islands, things like that. Number 3 is where things get interesting. And a lot of the conversation that takes place in the commission right now is talking about communities of interest. What we have in italics here is the only definition that's provided as part of Proposal 2. So it's very much up to the individual commissioners to decide if arguments that the public is making do qualify as COIs or not. And then number 4 is to achieve partisan fairness. And they're using a lot of different measurements to do that. And the commission is actively working to make their maps better. Right now, though, all of the maps that they have do lean to the right. As much as 6.5% in some cases. And that is giving a disproportionate advantage to Republicans. And what we want to be seeing is maps that are as close to zero political bias as possible. We want to see each district with zero political bias, and we don't want either party to have an unfair advantage. I have faith that the maps can get to where they need to be. And I think our continued advocacy is going to help them in that process. And I have ideas on how Ann Arbor in particular can help in that today. And it'll just take, a couple of minutes to have your voice heard in that way. But the commission does want to do better. They're struggling on how to do it. And so if we can just help them know what path to take to make this a better map, I think they'll be in a better place. 5, they're not considering where incumbents live at all as part of this process. And then we also, we have this idea of reflecting county and city and township boundaries. As we can see, we've probably heard a lot of these arguments all over the place, keep my city whole or keep my county whole. That is less of a priority than making sure that the maps are fair and exude partisan fairness. And so cutting cities in half, like we want to see them do in Ann Arbor, right? We want to see them unpack the Ann Arbor area and have you have multiple districts in the city in order to have multiple representatives representing you and to unpack Dem voices so that you're not all in one district. That is the kind of thing that is more important to do than to respect those city lines. And then districts being regionally compact is the last criteria there. So here's a little bit about the timeline and where they're at right now. So they're currently kind of flipping back and forth between mapping and map deliberations. Monday and Tuesday, we're looking to see them have more conversations about the maps that they're going to be taking into the public hearings that we'll have later this month. There will be a vote over the next couple of days on each of the maps that they want to take to public hearings. They have what they call collaborative maps. Their definition of what a collaborative map used to be that all of the commissioners have agreed to it. Now they have in many instances taken an individual commissioner's map and then worked on it some in an open session. And so now that's deemed a collaborative map. So where those lines are can be a little fuzzy. Over the next couple of days too, they meet Monday and Tuesday. We'll see individual commissioners submitting their own maps for consideration by the rest of the commission. It hasn't been decided yet among the commissioners if they will have to vote on individual commission maps or how they will necessarily decide which maps move on to public hearings, but we do have a few options already that we know will likely make their way forward. So these next 2 days are really, really important. These next 2 days also are the time when I think they're going to be most generous with making changes to the maps because they want them to be in a really good place as they go into the public hearings. So looking ahead, we're in mapping and map deliberations, as I mentioned. There'll be some kind of vote of what maps will go forth to public hearings. Right now, they have 5 public hearings scheduled sort of around the state. They do not come to Ann Arbor. It is important, though, that you have your voice heard as part of that process. You'll just need to decide which meeting you want to zoom into and talk about the maps and what's available. This runs through the end of October. Then they'll have another round of map deliberations. They'll take in all the feedback they've heard as part of the public hearings from all over the state. They'll incorporate that into their maps and make some big decisions about which ones they want to go with. So eventually what we're going to see here is a single state house, a single state senate, and a single congressional map getting approved by the commission. In order for a map to get passed by the commission, you have to have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 independents vote on that version of the map. Once they have reached some kind of consensus, which they're hoping to do by early November, there's a 45-day waiting period, which is like legally required as part of proposal 2. And then we could see them, once that's up, adopting the maps as soon as the end of this calendar year. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where they're at as far as the plans go. There's a couple opportunities here for you all to talk about what needs to be done in order to make these maps better. The path to fair maps very much runs straight through Washtenaw County and more specifically through Ann Arbor. And the state house changes that they've made to Ann Arbor to unpack it are extremely helpful in reducing the partisan fairness lean toward Republicans. And so that is critical. In the state Senate, they have packed all of the city of Ann Arbor in with Ypsilanti. We need them to unpack the city. Otherwise, we are going to be drawn out of the majority for the next decade in the Senate. And so those are the 2 main things that we need to be focused on. And I would love to walk you all through how to leave a comment directly on the maps that the commissioners will then see, and you can have impact that way. And so let me get out of this. All right. I'm not going to click on one of these links because it would take us directly to the map, and I want to show you where it is. So when you go to the MICRC's website, we're going to go to proposed draft maps right here. And this is what's going to pop up. So we can see congressional, state house, and state senate. Let's focus on the state house first. So down here, this plan 227, it's called October 8th, 21, and it's RAS. This is one that started out as Commissioner Rebecca Zatella's individual map, but because they worked on it in a collaborative session, they now consider it a collaborative map. If you go over here and click open, it's going to open up. And what she has done here is unpacked the city of Ann Arbor and put you all into multiple districts. And so we have the ability to spread out Dem voices, and she's unpacked the city. So if you zoom in to the area, all we need folks to do is to go in here, click add comment. As you can see, you already have some folks talking about unpacking Washtenaw County is great. Thank you for putting the city of Jackson with other communities along the I-94 corridor. These are the kind of comments that are coming in. So we're going to hit add comment, click on the map, click on Ann Arbor. And then we want to say that we like this, right? So we're going to keep it on like. We're going to fill out our information here. You do have to fill all of this out. It does not show up on the website, though. It's not going to be giving out your home address or anything like that. It'll just show up under your name. You do have to fill all this out, and then you're going to write a comment. Thank you so much for unpacking the city of Ann Arbor and doing so in order to like increase partisan fairness along the maps overall. And then you're going to hit add comment. If this is your first time leaving a comment directly on the portal, you'll get an email asking if that was you, that you'll need to like, tell them that, yes, it was me. I would like this comment to show up. But if you've left a comment before, it should automatically show up directly on the portal. The commissioners are looking at these maps and seeing how many dots there are, if they're green, because people like them, if they're red, because people don't. And so if we're able to get, everyone in this room putting a green dot on this, we're going to have several here on Monday when Commissioner Zatella opens this back up and says, all right, I did the right thing. This was good. This was well received by the public. I want to move that this map goes forward to the public hearings. And then we have a good looking map for Ann Arbor when we get to the public hearings. Any questions about how to actually physically leave the comment on the map? Okay, I will show.
I'm sorry, will somebody put the link to that in the chat for all of us, please?
Yes, I can absolutely do that.
Thank you. Sure.
I
will recruit many people to do that.
I also have this written out and we'll send it separately as well. So this is where we need positive comments, right? They unpack the city for the State House. This is fantastic. This brings their partisan measurements more in line with what we want to see, zero political bias, and it gives you more opportunity at representation. And then for the state Senate, the other opportunity here is to say that we don't like the way that they have done this. So as I was mentioning, and we already actually have quite a few dots on this one. So this is the link to the state Senate map. And here, when we zoom in, use our little hand grab to move it around. We're putting red dots because they have packed all of Democrats into one district by putting Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti together. We want to see the city of Ann Arbor split in order for us to have better representation and to bring the maps more in line when it comes to partisan fairness. By creating a district that has like 70% Democrats, they're creating a whole bunch of Republican districts all around you. And so as many people have done here, talked about, the importance of splitting the city in order to create fairness. So similarly, you're going to hit add a comment, you're going to click on the map, click on the city, and then we're going to switch it to a dislike comment. Here, we're going to fill out our information and say, please unpack the city of Ann Arbor as you have done in the House. If they've been able to accomplish it under the House map, they should be able to do it under the Senate map. If they keep it this way, they will keep Democrats out of a majority for the state Senate for the next decade. They need to unpack this in order to make it fair. There's a couple places left across the state that they've continued to keep packed. They did recognize the importance of unpacking cities, though, when it came to Lansing, and they did split Lansing. They also did split Grand Rapids as well, and understood the importance over there. So it needs to be in Ann Arbor as well. So those are the things that you could do today and could have an impact, because the commissioners are looking at these maps, they are evaluating. It's a really great way to have like an immediate impact on what they're thinking as they go into Monday and Tuesday, these two final days of public hearings. The other opportunity is that on Monday and Tuesday, they do have time for public comment. So they're meeting in East Lansing at both places. You can obviously zoom into either location. They meet at 10 o'clock on Monday, 9 o'clock on Tuesday. Public comment's always the first thing. They have already shared the registration links for how to give public comment or to sign up to give public comment via Zoom that I can share with the group as well. You only get 1 minute to speak now. It used to be 2. So it's very much like a short, hi, my name is, I live here. Please unpack the city of Ann Arbor. Thank you for doing it in the State House. Please consider doing so in the Senate. That is going to be probably, the gist of the minute, but that kind of comment can make a real difference, especially as they're making like these final decisions on how they want to present the maps going forward.
Thank you so much, Emily. This is great, actionable things that we can do. I just added the link for the upcoming meetings. So folks should be able to click on that link. State of Michigan links tend to have a lot of weird commas and numbers and things in there. So if that's not the best link, Emily, please add one. So folks, please do make some comments on these maps. What questions does anybody have for Emily before we move to our next piece of programming? Seeing no hands, and I am hearing no people trying to come off mute. All right, thank you so much, Emily, for coming and sharing this action with us.
Wait,
oh,
can I ask a question?
Yes, Ingrid.
Okay, I'm sorry. So this is going to sound like a silly question, but I assume that the comments that are coming in for these should really be district specific, correct?
As far as the push pins on the map?
Yeah, like you don't want people who don't live in the district to not comment on that, correct?
They don't check for that.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out who I can recruit to do this quickly.
If you live in Washtenaw, I think you have every right to comment on one of those. And so the way that the State House works too, right, is like they've unpacked basically the entire county. So wherever they live, they can write on that district, like, thank you for unpacking Washtenaw, and like just putting it that way. That would be fine too. They also do not check for that sort of thing. And so, the benefit of living in the county and seeing how the city is being representative is still like a fine reason to leave a comment on the city itself.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to recruit somebody who would be null and void, right? I want to use my resources carefully. Thank you. Sure. And unpacking the city is good for partisan fairness across the state, right? This is what helps us, get to an even place as far as getting to districts that have zero political bias and making things fair. And so even for someone like me who lives in Kalamazoo, the fact that they unpacked Ann Arbor is extremely important for my own representation as well. And so really anyone can say it. Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
No, I appreciate it. That's
about how they, if somebody took the effort, that it would be counted, right? Thank you.
And we do have a comment in the chat related to this too. Moving one border has to move at least another border as well. And so Dirk Mayhew was saying, please don't be shy about commenting on the overall map. Thanks, Dirk. Yes. Any other questions before we move to Representative O'Neal? All right. Well, thank you, Emily, so much. And thanks for putting those links in there. I know our chair has left us for the day. She had to sign out, but she did previously send an email to our email list with these action steps outlined in there. So please look for that email in your email boxes if you would like to be able to click links from your email. Otherwise, there are links in the chat here. So thank you so much for helping us take action.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. All right, now our next presentation today is from Representative O'Neal. The topic is the voter suppression petition drive that has been authorized here in our state, being pushed by state Republicans. And we had heard our own rep, Robbie, talk about this a few times, and he's not able to be in a place with enough internet service today to join us. So he wanted his colleague, O'Neal, Representative O'Neal, to please come and explain what we can do to take action to address this as well. So Representative O'Neal, are you ready to go, and do you need a presentation authorization? And I see Spencer just joined us too, again, via the video. Spencer, do you have slides or anything that we need to share?
No, I don't have them.
Okay. Representative O'Neal, are you able to come on right now? I know you have to leave at 11:30 to attend another event. All right. I'm wondering if we could move to maybe talk about one of the ballot proposals in the Ann Arbor city ballot that is happening this November. We do have 4 ballot proposals, and we're going to be joined by council members Eyer and Disch to talk about all 4 of them. I think, there could be some discussion back and forth on the topics that are on the ballot here in November. And I'm not sure if you're ready to talk about any of the ballot proposals yet. We had talked about you starting at 11:30, so it's possible you may not be quite ready yet to join us to talk about any of the Ann Arbor City ballot proposals. I see Councilmember Disch just popped up. Oh, and is Representative O'Neal? Apologies.
I'm sorry. I made my exhortation earlier, and I wanted to give Spencer Calhoun some time to talk about the Saginaw Dems, if you could allow him to do that.
Well, during this programming part, we were hoping to hear a little bit about the actions that we could take as the Ann Arbor Democratic Club against the Republican voter suppression petition drive. Spencer, are you able to comment on that also?
I don't have very much information on that, so I don't have anything for that right now.
All right. Well, I can follow up. I was getting ready for another event, and that's why I kind of spoke earlier. But what I could do is provide the outline to Floor Leader Robbie and Dr. Brayback in terms of what we're doing here locally to counteract some of the attacks from my colleagues. I think it's very important that we have a systematic plan of action across the state of Michigan in terms of what we're doing. I know Dr. Brayback is doing some things locally, and some of our other colleagues across the state are doing some activities, but our colleagues are relentless in terms of their messaging. I think that's important for us to do, having a consistent message throughout this campaign season, and also speaking at various nonprofits and community organizations where people congregate, particularly talking to our seniors, communicating with them. Because you look at as I indicated earlier, a lot of the gains and what we voted for in 2018 are under attack. The way we vote, how we vote, when we vote, particularly absentee ballot. My dad's 97 years old. He's legally blind. And so for him to get out and navigate through the system of voting in the public is extremely hard. There are a lot of senior citizens who depend on absentee voting. So that's one thing. And so we have to make sure that the petition drive, we need to address that in terms of communicating to our public, don't sign the petition. Even though they may come across as, oh, we want to protect the votes and we want to make sure everything's safe and secure, do not sign the petition. Do not sign anything you're not familiar with, and make sure we educate folks on the impact of that. And so that petition has been released. It's starting to circulate right now. Okay. And so I think systematically, again, our local Dems across the state, in concert with our state organizations, we have to have a unified message. We have to have a consistent message. And then we have to make sure that all vehicles in terms of how we communicate that are in motion, whether it's social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the vehicles that a lot of folks still utilize today. And then, if we have to, raise funds to do billboard campaigns, radio communications, whatever vehicle we can use, we need to use it, because this is really this is one of the most egregious attacks on our civil rights in general. And so if this happens, just think about the barrel rolling down the hill. There's nothing to stop it, right? And so there's so much that we can do and so much we can talk about. But in terms of the time here, we have time to do all that. But we have to be on deck, all hands on deck in terms of our efforts, and not give in and give out in terms of how committed we are to safeguard those things that our forefathers fought for. Here's the last statement I'll say. In every season, there are individuals who have to hold up the mantle, if you will. We had John Lewis, Dr. King, and there's so many others. You probably have folks in your memory that you can cite. And so this is our time right now. The folks that are on the call, the folks that we know are part of the struggle, this is our time right now to hold up the banner of civil rights and voting rights, because if not, then all is lost. I'll tell you, the sacrifices that were made in terms of to get to where we are today are just, being dismantled. You look at that, thank God for the Supreme Court in Texas. You look at the rights of, women. I have three, I have 3 daughters. Okay, and I was married. I lost my wife, unfortunately, to breast cancer, but I lived in a house with 4 women. And so I love my daughters, I love my wife, and I love just, the rights of women. So how can I, as a male, tell a woman what to do with her body? That's just one example. You follow me? And so all those things are under attack. It's up to us during our time now to hold up the mantle, to fight against those onslaughts of our civil liberties and our rights. And so with that, I will yield my time. And as I said, I'll communicate extensively with Floor Leader Robbie with all of the written documents that we have in terms of our steps, our processes, and our implementation of our action plans relative to the plan that we have here in Saginaw County.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining a little bit about what's happening across the state with this petition drive. Spencer, you did say you had a comment you wanted to add in this topic.
So going with petitioning as well, there is a positive petition. That's the petition for Governor Whitmer's reelection. She still needs a number of signatures. And so what I have here from the Michigan Democratic Party is a mobilized link for a training so that you'll know how to, you'll receive the petitions if you do the training, but you'll also know how to fill them out correctly so that we can ensure that the governor is on the ballot and that all the signatures that are collected are not going to be thrown out, that they're correct. So it's a really good training. And I just wanted to let everyone know about that as well.
Thank you. We do have a question in the chat box from Dirk Mayhew for Representative O'Neal. For the attack on voting rights, is there a veto referendum planned? So if the ballot proposal right now that's being gathering signatures, if that gathers enough signatures and then gets on the ballot and passes, is there a referendum being planned?
Well, we talked quite a bit about action steps in our caucus, and that discussion is still ongoing. We don't want to be premature, but we do have just a heightened sense of concern. If this does get the signatures necessary, then what are our next steps? So that's something I will bring back, and with support from Floor Leader Robbie and Dr. Bray back to the table with our caucus when we return back next week for further discussion, and then we can report back out to you guys in terms of what our decisions are relative to that.
Mm-hmm. And Dirk is adding that this ballot proposal, if it does get enough signatures under our state constitution, it could be adopted by the state legislature without ever going to the ballot for the voters to decide. And Dirk is assuming that's how it will pass. Yes. with this legislature. Is there anything that we could do to stop that besides just stopping the signatures? Because they have to gather the signatures by what time? Do we know the exact end date? It's by the end of this.
I don't have the exact time with me, but you're right. Once they secure those signatures, again, that just strips the the veto power of the governor, and it does not have to go to the voters once they have I think it's 360 something thousand in that range. But again, I think educating our public in terms of the impact of that signature, even though their messaging will say, "Oh, we're protecting the vote, we make sure everything's secure, et cetera, et cetera." No, that's the messaging they're using is really deceptive, and it really skews your opinion in terms of, oh, okay, if you come up to me and say, "Oh, let's protect the vote," in general context, you say, "Oh, okay, fine, no problem. Let's sure," right? And so we have to be aware. We have to be awake in terms of what's going on across the country. This is just not Michigan. This is a national attack. Okay, a national attack, and so that's why it's important for us here in the state to be consistent with our colleagues across the nation, our Democratic colleagues across the nation, that we have a national platform messaging. And unfortunately, I don't see that, and that's troubling for me in terms of being a representative for the state of Michigan. So that's a message you can also take, share with our state office department in terms of linking the dots in terms of our messaging with the national movement of our other Democratic colleagues and independents and those alike who support not allowing these efforts to go forward.
Mhm. Thank you. In the comments, thanks Senator Irwin for adding there's no exact end date. They have 180 days to collect, but there's no start or end date. Senator Irwin is saying they won't be able to get enough signatures before the end of the year. And so if it does get passed by the legislature, it won't go into effect in 2022. And then there may be time to plan for reaction before 2024 if this is adopted by the legislature, if they do get enough signatures in that time period.
Thank you,
for that.
Senator. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from our members here present today while we still have Representative O'Neal, who has to jump off in just a minute to attend another event?
No, I do, Carrie. I think this discussion should be on our agenda. This is what I said to my Democratic caucus here in town months ago. I said this has to be one of the top priorities that we're working on in terms of, making sure this is part of our agenda. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? And so even though there are other important issues, this is one of the top priorities, I think, for us.
Mm-hmm. And our member Dirk Mayhew was saying the 180 days is probably around March 22nd, since the language was approved on September 23rd. And so that would be 180 days after the language was approved. So we can think about that as a timeline, be disruptive to people signing until then, to see if we can make sure that they don't get enough signatures.
Exactly. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Spencer for joining us also. It's great to hear what's happening with our Democratic siblings across the state. So thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you. Now we have two council members from the Ann Arbor City Council. Councilmember Disch and Eyer will talk about the 4 ballot proposals on the Ann Arbor City ballot. These are the only things on the Ann Arbor City ballot this November. So we're really lucky to have some time to talk about them, just so we can understand a little bit more about what is currently on our ballot. And let's start with Councilmember Eyer. You wanted to talk to us about Proposal A.
Yes, and I'm also going to give a short summary after we talk about Proposal A. I'll give a short summary of C and D. All 3 of these ballot proposals are on the very, very sexy topic of procurement. So bear with me here as I kind of go through this. I would characterize all of these as good government reforms. And in the case of Proposal A, it's really about improving the quality of the construction projects that are done in the city, and it's also about workers and supporting companies that treat their workers like we as Ann Arborites think they should be treated. Okay, so The charter amendment, as I said, it'll, greatly improve the way the city evaluates and awards construction contracts for infrastructure projects. This is public improvement projects, things like our roads, our water mains, construction and work on our city-owned buildings, things like that. Currently, our city charter requires that each contract for public improvements shall be let to the lowest responsible bidder. And in the months that I've been on council, it has become apparent as we've seen bids come through that this charter amendment is preventing the city from fully implementing the responsible contractor policy that was passed by council last year. So those of you who are close watchers of council know what that is, but for those who don't, the responsible contractor policy gives city staff a framework for gathering important information from bidders regarding things like the skills and training of workers, quality of the work that is that they've done in the past, safety of job sites, and a lot more. So unfortunately, right now, city staff has no authority to actually use the information that is gathered on those issues due to the current charter language. So for example, a bidder might answer the responsible contractor policy questions by saying they don't participate in a registered apprenticeship program, which means that their personnel may or may not have the skills that they need to do the work. And they don't provide healthcare or retirement benefits to workers. And still, they're awarded the contract as long as they are the lowest responsible bidder. So our responsible contractor policy in its current form is useless. This charter amendment, therefore, would change the charter language from lowest responsible bidder to bidder who provides the best value to the city. And if you think of it, in terms of how any of us as consumers buy anything, right? We don't just always buy the cheapest thing, the cheapest car that would get us from point A to point B. We look at all the factors and we weigh them and we think about what's important to us, whether it's safety, quality, reliability, whether it's union made or not, right? That's something that a lot of us think about when we purchase a vehicle. And then we, choose the one that provides the best value. So this is the very same concept, just applied to how we award bids at the city. So this, the best value charter amendment, the bottom line is it's going to allow the city to make smart, informed decisions about who to hire for construction projects. Once it is passed, hopefully it will pass, city staff will be able to finally use that information that we gather under the responsible contractor policy and use it to score bids and determine which contractor provides the best value to the city. Now, the missing step here is that we have to develop what that scoring system looks like. And I'm currently working with city staff to develop a draft system. Once we have a proposal together, it will go to council for discussion for possible amendments and approval. And so this system will be completely transparent to the public and to potential bidders. They will understand going in how they will be scored when they answer all of these questions.
Wow, thank you. That is definitely the minutia of city policy nuance. So thank you for explaining that. What questions do folks in our virtual room here have for Council Member Eyer about Proposal A, if any questions? I'm seeing no hands or attempted unmutings. Oh, Ingrid.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, I think this is a really important proposal. Having been the DDA director for the city of Ypsilanti back in the middle 2000s, I was up against just these kinds of issues where the bids were awarded to the lowest bidder, and the contracts they just, I ended up having to do a $1 million streetscape improvement project with a contractor that I seriously did not want to work with. And it was certainly not who we would have selected. So I think this is a really important step and something that I would fully support. Do you see, Jen or Lisa, do you see any negative aspects at all that could come from this? Since you're more involved?
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, I'll tell you, my own personal frustration was, there was a bid that came through that was going to the cheapest bidder. And, for just, I think it was just a difference of $20,000. You get someone who answered all the responsible contractor policy questions right, and this is on a multi-million-dollar bid. And, the difference of $20,000 can get you, a contractor that is exactly what we're looking for. And yet, it came through with a recommendation from city staff to go with this cheaper bidder who doesn't provide employees with healthcare and benefits all the time, and only pays prevailing wage when they do work in the city, not all the time, doesn't participate in an apprenticeship program. So we have no idea what the skills and training level is of their staff, of their workers. So yeah, it's I don't see any downsides. I see this as really solving a big problem that we have. And, this stuff matters. When you look at the sewage spills that we had that made their way to the Huron River after some water main work, that was the contractor's fault. It happened twice, and this contractor answered the responsible contractor questions very poorly. doesn't participate in an apprenticeship program, for example. So yeah, so this stuff really does matter. Sam.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your support for this proposal. I was thinking about it, and I was kind of swayed when I read something Ian Robinson said, the head of the Huron Valley Federation. And it's great that we're doing something to stop kind of the march towards lower wages. I was curious about whether any steps have been made to look at what the city pays our own employees or its own employees, because we demand contractors who aren't exempt pay at least 15 and 35. I might be wrong. You might know the number exactly. I just looked it up several days ago, but the city itself does not pay its own employees at least 15 or the living wage we demand of contractors. So I don't need an answer now. It's just something I'm interested in you thinking about. Yeah,
I'm unfamiliar with, do you know what job classifications you would be?
No, I just see job postings. I mean, some temporary and seasonal, and those are often excuses employers and managers make. These people aren't worth as much because we'll have part-time, but that's just an incentive for many employers to drive down wages. So yeah, thanks for listening to my question.
Absolutely. And I don't want to take us too off topic here, but this is really important. And I want to make the quick point that, and I'm trying to remember which other council members were with me on this. I want to say Councilmember Radina for sure, that the issue came up about, because a bid had come across for seasonal temporary employees. And we asked city staff to do a thorough review of who is being hired for seasonal jobs. And if we have people who are year after year, the same people being hired to do, for example, our composting pickup, that's really a full-time job. I mean, that's not a temporary worker, right? And that worker deserves to be treated as a staff member, so that review is being done, and I look forward to the results of it.
No, and to your point, I think the city, as many other employers, do take steps to exempt certain employees, like 8 or 9 month employee classification, from being able to join AFSCME. So these are some steps that are over the last 40 years cities have taken to kind of live
Get
by
it
the
wrong.
letter of the contract, but not honor the spirit of the contract that the city has with AFSCME. So thank you.
Yeah, and Lisa has her hand up here, and I know
Yeah.
that I'm remembering now that she was also voicing concern about that.
Thank
And I
you.
just wanted to add that, wait, I'm like making a mess of the reactions tab here, but yeah, I wanted to add that the issue with the temporary employees who are repeatedly hired on these 8 to 9 month contracts for compost, they are getting more than minimum wage, and more than a living wage. Actually, the rate at which we hire them from the temporary agency that we use is it's either 18 or 23 or something like that. So it is more than a living wage. But the issue is they cannot be unionized employees. And so we are asking those, we have conveyed that we would like those employees to be hired on full-time, because it doesn't make any sense to just keep hiring them temporary, and to do that as quickly as it is feasible, but not slower than 3 years maximum. So that's in the works, but these are slightly different issues. I think what Sam is asking, and this would be, I'm sure that we'll get this information in terms of what we have already asked for, of if we're not paying a living wage to our summer workers,
Right,
who staff our pools and Argo and all of that. So
yeah.
And so this sounds like a good future topic for the Ann Arbor Dems to think about. And we might be able to, after you learn a little bit more at the city, we might be able to tie this into maybe our Labor Day programming for next year, perhaps. That gives us a few months to learn more. Janet, you do have your hand up. Do you want to ask a question about Proposal A on the ballot before we move on to other proposals?
Yeah, just very quickly, Lisa mentioned the union aspect. That was something that had given me pause. I was not sure about supporting this proposal because it doesn't include any mention of looking for union a requirement for unions. I did actually end up voting for it because after a good discussion with Washtenaw Dems, we decided to endorse, and I found the arguments very persuasive. But perhaps we won't need to go into that now, but I just did wonder how the unionization intersects.
Yep. Exactly. So we legally cannot require that companies be associated with a union in order to consider them for bids. So that's why you do not see the word union mentioned. However, if you go through all of the responsible contractor criteria and you answer in a way that we deem positive, there's almost no way that you're not going to be a union company, because the union companies are the most responsible contractors out there. They just are. They pay their workers well. They give them benefits. They train them. They have job safety measures that are absolutely unmatched in the non-union world. And so, all of these things are really important for the quality of the work and also for our values, for supporting the middle class and supporting workers. And that's kind of how I think we're going to see it go once it's implemented.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy.
We do have a question in the box from Dirk Mayhew. Are the criteria online? And based on what you said earlier, Councilmember Eyer, you're still working on those, right?
Well, if anyone wants to see what the current responsible contractor policy is, that is available. I can try to find it, and I'll send it to you, Carrie, if you want to send it out.
Yes.
Because I don't have it at my fingertips, but it's in Legistar. If you go to Legistar and just search for responsible contractor policy, you should be able to find it, but I'll find the link. As far as how we will use those criteria, like what weight will be given to criteria X, Y, and Z, that's what's still being developed. And that has to be discussed by all of council and agreed upon, by a majority.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Councilmember Eyer, you said you were also going to talk about proposal C and D briefly too. And previously I did add the link for folks here in the Zoom room to be able to look at all the proposals, just if you want to read along, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure. And I am just gonna, because I'm forgetting which is C and which is D. So let me bring it up. So we've got, there's the two, C and D are about, one is about emergency procurement. So that is, you know, when a water main breaks and the city administrator and the public works folks have to immediately go out and find someone, hire someone to fix the work because it's truly an emergency. We have water gushing out everywhere, right? So in those instances, we have city policy that the administrator is authorized to make those bid, to contract with companies to do that work. And then the administrator does have to follow up with council at the next available opportunity and, you know, have that ratified essentially by council. So there is that oversight. Currently, the charter is silent regarding this process. And so all this proposal does is take what has been city policy for a long time and codify it in the charter. So we're not making a change here. This is simply a cleaning up, if you will, of the charter. It's not something that we would go to voters for on its own, but since we are already doing these other procurement measures, that it just made sense. You know, city staff asked if we wouldn't mind putting this one forth as well, just to clean up the charter and make that official. Do folks have any questions about that? Okay.
So that was proposal C.
Yep.
And then proposal D is the dollar limit.
Is that raises the threshold. So currently, any contracts above $25,000 have to come to council for approval. That was passed in 1995, and it was not tied to inflation. So in today's dollars, I think the number would be somewhere around 50,000. Or if you look at it another way, if we were to pass the same policy today, it would be anything over about $13,000 would have to come to council for approval, which is just a ridiculously low amount. So this raises the threshold to 75,000. However, it maintains competitive bidding for that space between 25 and 75 and above, of course. Anything above 25 still must be competitively bid. And those competitive bids, the awards are posted on the city website, on our procurement part of the website. And so the public and council can still provide oversight and make sure that that things are being bid out the way they should be. But what this does by raising the threshold is it really saves on staff time. So we understand that with proposal A, staff are going to spend a lot more time evaluating and scoring bids for the big construction projects that make up the lion's share of the money that we spend to contract out. These small dollar bids actually only account for 4% of our spending. If all the way up to $75,000, it's only 4% of our spending on contracts. But it represents 40% of the time that staff spends on preparing these issues to come to council. So those two things are just wildly out of proportion. They are spending an enormous amount of time preparing very small dollar contracts to come before council. And so, so this is just a good government reform. It will make things more efficient. We will still have oversight. We will still have competitive bidding, but we're just not going to see those and have staff prepare all of those small dollar bids to come to council and spend the time voting on them when they represent such a tiny amount of the money that we spend.
Thank you for explaining the C and D. Ingrid, you have your hand up for a question.
Yeah, so that was an interesting statistic that you shared with us, Jen, about the smaller bids taking up 40% of the staff time. So conversely, are you telling us that any bid over 75% is always going to have to go through this new process? And if so, what will that do to staff time on the higher bids? Has anybody calculated what that's going to do?
There's really, we don't have a way to calculate that yet because we don't have it in place. The scoring system should be, I mean, it should be fairly easy to, it's just, we assign a value depending on if you answer this yes or no or whatever. But it will take some additional time. It's impossible to say at this point how much.
All right, thank you. I was just wondering if we're making some kind of, if it's a good trade-off. I mean, it feels like it's a good trade-off, but it's one of those variables one never knows.
Yeah. It certainly seems like one, but these things are never set in stone either. So
right.
It's not working.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sam, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. No, this seems like a great idea. It seems like it basically just cleans up the consent agenda. So as a council person or anyone in the city or anybody, instead of 20 items being on there and you have to wade through them, there might be only 8. So you don't have to look through all the contracts for 28,000 or 35,000 or 72,000. And that it's just not, people don't have to look at them. I mean, it's slightly less transparent, but it sounds like staff spent a lot of time to prepare these, to put these on the consent agenda. So yeah, I'll be voting for this. Thank you.
Great. And I do want to stress too that I did ask staff to continue putting those on the public, on the city website, even though they're not coming to council, so that people can continue to see what those smaller contracts are. I think that's really important for transparency. It's also, I think, important for people, who may want to do work with the city to be able to see what kind of opportunities there are. So that will continue.
Thank you. Yep. Great questions. We do have just over 10 minutes left. I wanted to give Councilmember Disch enough time to talk to us about Proposal B, which is the ranked choice voting proposal. And then normally we would, as a club, be able to vote for endorsing if we wanted to, if we had enough people present. And we do have to have 15 members present in order to vote to endorse any proposals, and the host is not able to vote on that. And so right now we actually have 15 people in the room, and so we would only have 14 people be able to vote. So it's possible that we will not be able to vote for endorsing at our meeting today. I just wanted to let folks know in case you're hanging on for that. So please, Councilmember Disch, tell us about Proposal B.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
You should be able to, if you're not at the moment, our host can authorize you to be able to share.
I'm going to see. I am the co-host. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, let me just get this. It has failed to start. So let me. Okay. Let me try one more time. It didn't start. So screen sharing. Share. Okay, are you seeing my screen now?
We are seeing just the top of your presentation. So I don't know if you need to go into presentation mode and then share that window. Okay, we can see the whole thing.
Now you can see that. Now I'm going to try to go in presentation mode. Last time it didn't like that I did that. So
it's working. Thank you.
Right? Okay, great. Okay, so let me move this bar down. Great. So I don't know how many of you were familiar with ranked choice voting, but this is what the ballot looks like, or this is one version ballot could look like. It's so simple that it fits on a t-shirt. And here is what ranked choice voting fixes. So in a majority a majority rule system is supposed to look like this. Purple should win the election. If purple is for progressive, and this is your share of this is the share of voters who are progressive in the electorate, they should win the election. But if this is your share of progressives in the election, this is what you are likely to see, that actually there are 3 different versions of progressive in your electorate. And if those 3 different versions of progressive all run a different candidate in a plurality system, this is what you will get as the outcome. You will get the opposite of what majority rule promises. And so ranked choice voting, by allowing all the progressive voters to rank their choices among the varieties of progressive, ranked choice voting allows, it's sort of a mechanical way of making of enabling voters to coalesce around an ideological agenda. So they're forming coalitions through the way that they rank their preferences. They don't do it through negotiation. It's just a voting method that allows them to do that. So how do we count ranked choice votes? Here was an actual election, and you see that in this election, Peter Ives came in. He had the least number of first choice votes. And right here, this black bar is what it would take to get a 50 plus 1% majority. So Peter Ives' votes are going to be chopped up into, we're going to activate the second preferences of those who chose him first, and we are going to redistribute them. We see that Joseph Maestas, he comes in last next, and we do the same with his votes. We're going to keep going. Kate Noble didn't make it either. And in the end, when we've distributed all the votes, it's not enough to get Ronald Trujillo over the majority line, but it is enough to get Alan Weber there. So that's just really how ranked choice voting works. And in an actual RCV election, that process is instantaneous. We break it up like this so you can just see how it happens, but it would be instantaneous as those, as the total votes in the city are tabulated through the ranked choice spreadsheet. So Democrats using ranked choice vote in, hold on, sorry. No, we don't want to do that. I can't see the rest of my slide because of the way I have this set up. Okay, so you see that there is one state, Maine, that uses ranked choice voting, a number of cities, not just on the coasts, but throughout the nation. And you see a number of states that where ranked choice voting is used in party primaries by the Democratic Party, and also to determine party rules. And I wanted to show you that, and I'm going to stop screen sharing now, because I think that the greatest use of ranked choice voting in Ann Arbor would be in a partisan primary. And we would be preserving the partisan primaries. We would not be getting rid of them. So in the partisan primaries, it would allow the many varieties of progressive voters to have choices in different among different candidates in the primary. And then if in November there's someone who wants to run as an independent, it might make things easier for independents, and we won't get Republicans trying to run on the Democratic ballot line, which is not a desirable thing in my view. So this is what's so great about ranked choice voting. It doesn't make you stuff your complex preferences into an either or choice. Even when we're choosing among Democrats, our preferences are not necessarily binary. Who benefits from this? Voters benefit from it the most. You get to cast your first choice for a candidate that you really want. And ranked choice voting makes it more likely that the candidate that's available to you will be a person of color or a woman, because more have been running and more have been winning thanks to the use of ranked choice voting. Knowing that you can vote for the candidate that you really want without helping elect the one that you despise the most improves turnout. And it especially improves turnout among younger voters. And, I'd like you to think just for a minute about what it would be like to express your political choices the way you express choices about other things. I really, well, if not this, then that would be okay too. If not that, well, I suppose if it comes down to two things I'm not really hot about, this one would do less damage than that one. That's what RCV does. RCV puts the bottom of the barrel at the bottom of the barrel. You start by choosing what you want, and you end where the two-party system all too often begins, which is, or you may end, you may not even get there, but making you choose the least undesirable of two options that don't really turn you on. RCV also encourages more issue-focused, less contentious campaigns, because I can hardly insult my opponent if I am vying to be their supporter's second choice. If Prop B passes, we will need enabling legislation to allow ballots to be formatted and counted according to the RCV method, because currently our state election law does not anticipate an election that will be conducted by ranked choice voting. However, ranked choice voting is legal. Charter cities like ours can adopt it. So this is a perfectly legal ballot proposition, and RCV would be legal in Ann Arbor if we adopted it. It would not yet be fully practicable, but we saw it done in East Point last fall and all went well. It was a fully certified election because it was court mandated. The state had to waive certain rules and allow East Point to do its own experiment. So that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to entertain a couple of questions. I don't think we have a lot of time.
We don't. You did answer some of the questions in the chat. There was a question about recounts. And I'm not sure, Janet, what you mean about the question about recounts. If there was ranked choice voting, recounting, how would that happen?
The ballot language does not suggest that it's currently illegal in Michigan. It is legal in Michigan. It is simply, there are provisions in as a method, it is legal. There are provisions in our law that make it that mean that using a ranked choice ballot and the ranked choice method of counting is not foreseen in state election law. And so in that respect, it is not fully, I mean, I would say not fully practicable, but it is not allowed by the state ballot format. The laws that govern state ballot format is what I mean to say.
So if proposal B passes in Michigan, we would still, as a city, need some authorization to be able to use it.
Not authorization, there would just literally need to be changed to the laws that govern the format of ballots, because ballots which used to be at the city level are now at the state. So the state controls.
We pass it and that legislative action doesn't happen, we would not be able to use it. Correct. That method.
Correct. Okay. Correct. We will not be able to use it until the laws governing ballot format and counting are changed. The state's own legal advisors have stated that ranked choice voting is legal for charters. It's unequivocal. They have stated that. Do you have to vote for a second, third choice? No, you don't have to rank all the candidates, but that means that your ballot could fall out of the final count. Unless you happen to pick first the person who is going to win, your ballot would not be in the final round of counting. So it's to your advantage to rank as many choices as you have the opportunity to rank.
All right, so I apologize if there's more questions. It is coming up right on noon, and we try to do our best to get folks out of here right at noon. We are, at the moment, there's 16 individuals here in the Zoom room. If we wanted to entertain any endorsement proposals of any or all, or non-endorsement, if we want to make sure that we are not endorsing any of these ballot proposals. So if folks want to do that, we do have polls prepared. And I think we got through all the questions on proposal B. What do folks think? Do we want to try to entertain any proposals, endorsements of any proposals, or how do we want to proceed here?
Who left?
Well, we do have 15 people in the Zoom room. Our host is not able to vote, but could voice vote. So we could ask the host to voice vote if we wanted to do that. Anybody want to take a vote? Chris, I see you are waving.
I'd be willing to make a motion to certainly on the first two, and I'm fine with all four of them, but maybe it makes the most difference on the first two, A and B. move that we endorse them.
Carrie, have you got time to discuss?
Mary, our parliamentarian, do we have a minute? to discuss?
We are over our time limit at this point in time, so I just want you to be aware that it is 12:01.
Okay.
Recommend against running an endorsement without some discussion.
Okay. Fair enough.
I support that.
Okay.
All right. Well, we are at time. So there has been plenty of folks posting comments and analysis online about the different proposals. So maybe we as a club could try to round up some of those and maybe send some emails through our email list and possibly just let folks weigh for themselves. So apologies for going over time today. Thank you so much for our presenters and everybody attending and having such great questions today. And we look forward to seeing you at our meeting next month if possible. And there's lots of events going on. We're right knocking on the door of our midterm year. So let's keep up the good work and elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.